Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind, and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us gently into the nature of reality itself, not as a grand puzzle of physics or philosophy, but as something far closer to home, something woven through every breath you take, every colour you see, every memory you carry. We'll explore how the world you move through each day is shaped, filtered, softened, and sometimes transformed by the unique lens of your own consciousness. But before you settle in, perhaps dim the lights around you, or let a small hum of background sound keep you company. If you'd like, picture yourself floating quietly in a warm darkness, resting in the space between thoughts. Let the air settle. Let the room grow gentle. You're safe here and there is nowhere else to be, and if your mind begins to wander, that's perfectly fine, just let it drift. We'll still be here, unfolding the story slowly beside you. Reality feels so solid at first glance. A table looks like a table, a voice sounds like a voice, a moment feels like a moment. But if you pause and let your awareness settle a little deeper, you begin to notice something unusual hiding underneath the everyday surface. The world you experience is not simply a perfect copy of what's out there. Instead, it is a soft rendering created inside your mind, a living portrait the brain paints from flickers of light, whispers of sound, and the quiet messages rising from within your own body. It's almost as if your consciousness is a gentle translator, turning the raw signals of the universe into something you can feel and understand. And like any translator, it brings its own history, its own language, its own subtle interpretations. Think about the simple act of opening your eyes. Wide as it may seem, your visual field actually contains a blind spot, an area where your eye receives no information at all. But you don't see a hole in the world. You see a seamless picture. Your mind fills it in without hesitation, drawing from memory and expectation, blending everything so smoothly that you never notice the absence. That quiet act of filling in, of bridging empty spaces happens constantly. When your eyes dart from one point to another, they move so quickly that the world should appear as a blur. Yet what you perceive is effortlessness, as if your inner vision glides without interruption. The brain creates a smooth film from scattered frames, like a projector that edits out the chaos between each flicker, and this is only the beginning. Every sense you have is filtered. You don't hear all frequencies, you don't see all wavelengths, you don't feel every grain of texture beneath your hand. Your consciousness selects only what it believes you need, like a curator guiding you through a vast museum where most rooms are quietly kept in the dark. What you call reality is the room currently illuminated. The rest waits in shadow. Instead of overwhelming you with everything at once, your mind shapes the world into a story told at a comfortable pace, adjusting brightness, softening edges, choosing which details to highlight and which to let fade. It's not deception, it's compassion, a form of protection. And because your mind is not simply a camera but an interpreter, expectations subtly influence what you perceive. Imagine walking home at night and hearing a rustle behind you. If you're calm, it may sound like leaves. If you're tense, it may sound like footsteps. The sound is the same. The meaning is different. Expectation drapes perception with a light fabric of possibility and sometimes of fear. Scientists often describe this as the mind predicting first and checking later. But you can imagine it more simply, as if your awareness is always a half step ahead, sketching the world before the details arrive, then adjusting the picture when the truth becomes clear. Even colour itself is not as fixed as it seems. You might recall that strange moment on the internet when a photograph of a dress divided millions of people. Some saw blue and black, others saw white and gold. The image never changed, the light never shifted, only the mind's interpretation differed. Two worlds, living side by side, both sincere, both vividly real to those who saw them. It was a reminder that reality is not just what the eyes receive, but what the mind makes of what the eyes receive. And then there is time. Even this steady river is not quite what it seems. Your conscious experience doesn't arrive in separate droplets. It spreads itself gently across small intervals, like watercolour bleeding across paper. This is why music feels smooth, why sentences flow, why movement makes sense. The now you live in isn't a point but a short stretch, a soft window the mind gathers into one continuous breath. Your consciousness smooths the jagged edges of moment after moment, letting you drift through your life as though watching a long, unbroken film. All of this raises a quiet, tender truth. Your reality is not something waiting passively outside you. It is something continuously shaped by you, by your memories, by your emotions, by the tiny predictions your mind makes from second to second, by the way your body whispers to your awareness, by your past, your hopes, your fears, your dreams. What you're seeing right now, this moment, this room, this world, is the result of a dialogue between the outer universe and the inner one. A conversation between what exists and what you expect, between what is offered and what you're ready to receive. And so, as we gently begin this exploration together, perhaps hold this thought for a moment. The world you experience is not a single, rigid truth, but a living canvas shaped by your conscious lens. It does not make reality less meaningful. If anything, it makes it more intimate, more personal, more alive. You're not merely walking through the world, you're participating in the making of it, quietly, constantly, beautifully. Now let's continue drifting deeper into this gentle mystery, letting each idea unfold at its own unhurried pace. As you settle a little deeper into this quiet space, imagine your mind not as a machine collecting facts, but as an artist sitting before an endless canvas. With each breath, with each flicker of light, with each shifting sound in the air, it adds gentle strokes, soft colours, and subtle textures. What you call seeing or hearing is really this artist at work, blending what arrives from the outside with what it already remembers, expects, or hopes to find. This blending happens so seamlessly that it feels instantaneous, but beneath that smooth ease are countless tiny choices, brushstrokes your awareness never quite notices. Scientists sometimes describe this process in terms of prediction, saying that the mind anticipates the world before confirming it. But instead of thinking about equations or symbols, you might imagine something more peaceful. Your awareness reaching forward like a hand feeling the air before your body moves through it. It tries to guess what lies ahead, gently adjusting its grip as new information arrives. In this way, perception becomes less like receiving a perfect photograph, and more like tuning a radio, where the signal is shaped by how you listen. Consider what happens when you walk into a familiar room. Even before your eyes fully adjust to the light, the shapes of the furniture feel known. You sense where the table should be, where the window quietly waits, even where a familiar object rests on a shelf. Your mind paints the scene almost instantly, filling in details before your senses finish reporting them. Only after this soft anticipation does the world settle into its final form, and if one detail has changed, perhaps a chair moved or a book set in a new place, you feel a brief ripple, a slight pause, as your mind revises the painting. That ripple is the moment prediction meets reality. This silent artistry becomes even clearer in small illusions. Imagine hearing your name in a bustling crowd. Most of the noise is a blur of voices, footsteps, and clinking objects. Yet the moment you expect to hear something familiar, a single sound stands out. Or think about tasting your favourite drink. Often you sense the flavour before the liquid touches your tongue, simply because memory has already arrived. These moments reveal how expectation can open or narrow your attention, shaping what seems important or real. There's a gentle comfort in this. Your consciousness does not simply wait for evidence. It leans forward, trying to make sense of the world before the world fully speaks. Sometimes this creates delightful coincidences, like hearing your phone vibrate even when it hasn't, or catching a glimpse of movement that turns out to be just a shadow. Other times it leads to confusion, those moments when you misread a stranger's expression, or when a friend says something you interpret through the lens of your own worries. In these moments, reality feels slightly off-center, as if the painting needs to be adjusted. But this blending of input and expectation is not a flaw. It's a gentle strategy, an efficient way for your awareness to stay balanced in a world filled with more information than any mind could process at once. The brain receives far more raw data than it can handle, so it chooses, it selects, it highlights and softens, it creates meaning out of fragments. This quiet curation is how you navigate your days without being overwhelmed. It's how you focus on someone's voice in a crowded room, or track a friend's face in a noisy cafe, or feel calm even when the world around you grows busy. There is a poetic side to this too. If the mind is always predicting, always sketching ahead, then reality becomes partly a story you tell yourself, a story refined by your past, shaped by your hopes, coloured by the emotions you carry. Think about those moments when you're tired and the world seems a little heavier, or when you're joyful and even small details seem golden. The world hasn't changed, your inner artist has. It chooses different colours, different lighting, different emphasis. In this way, perception and emotion dance together, each guiding the other, each shaping how the moment unfolds. If you've ever experienced déjà vu, that strange flicker where the present feels oddly familiar, you've touched the edge of this artistry. It's as if your mind momentarily misplaces a brushstroke, blending a current scene with a whisper of memory, and in dreams, the artist becomes even more free. Building landscapes without the constraints of incoming signals, showing just how vivid the inner world can be when it paints alone. One of the most striking reminders that the brain is an artist comes from cases where sensory information is missing or incomplete. For someone who has lost a limb, the mind may still feel its presence, shaping sensations out of memory. This phantom limb is not a trick, it's the brain's insistence on completing the picture. Even in grief, when someone dear has passed away, a sudden sense of their presence, a voice, a shadow, a warmth, is another form of this completion. The mind reaches for what once was, allowing the world to feel momentarily whole. These experiences, gentle or unsettling, are not signs of weakness. They are signs of a mind devoted to coherence, creating a reality that feels continuous, meaningful and livable. Without this artistry, perception would be too raw, too scattered. Instead, consciousness weaves threads of meaning through the sensory tapestry, giving shape to a world that feels solid under your feet. If you let yourself slow down for a moment, you can almost sense this process happening beneath your thoughts. A soft blending, a quiet choosing, a warm smoothing of edges. The mind is tirelessly creating, anticipating, adjusting, refining so you can move through life with a sense of flow. And so, as we drift deeper into this exploration, you might begin to appreciate reality not as a fixed external thing, but as something alive, something continually negotiated between what the world offers and what your consciousness contributes. This negotiation does not diminish the world, it enriches it. It makes your experience uniquely your own, a painting no one else can see in quite the same way. And in that realization, there is a soft beauty worth holding on to. If you let your awareness drift for a moment, you may begin to sense something subtle about the way the world presents itself to you. Everything you see, every object, every colour, every movement, arrives in a form that feels natural, almost inevitable. Tables look stable, trees look like trees, time feels like a line stretching forward. But beneath that familiar simplicity lies a quiet mystery. What if the world you perceive is not the world as it truly is, but the world translated into a language your mind can understand? What if perception is less like opening a window and more like reading a gentle summary crafted just for you? This idea may sound abstract at first, but you can soften it by imagining the screen of a computer. When you drag a file into a folder, you don't see the millions of tiny electrical changes happening underneath. You see an icon move. The icon isn't the file, it's a symbol, created to make the hidden world more manageable. In a similar way, some scientists suggest that the world you see is an interface, a helpful surface designed by your mind to guide you through life without overwhelming you with the deep complexity beneath. Think of an object sitting in front of you, a cup perhaps. You see its colour, its outline, the way light rests on its surface. You sense its weight when you pick it up. But what you're experiencing is not the cup's true nature. At a deeper level, it's made of particles, fields, and interactions that no one directly perceives. Yet you rarely think about any of that. Your consciousness gives you a simplified version, a kind of user-friendly picture. It hides the microscopic details and presents only what matters: shape, texture, warmth, weight. Without this simplification, everyday life would be too overwhelming, like trying to navigate a city while constantly seeing every building's blueprint at once. This interface isn't just visual. Sound, too, is translated into a useful form. Air vibrations become the soft weave of voices, footsteps, or music. You never perceive the individual waves, you perceive their meaning. Even time, which feels steady and linear, may be a kind of helpful illusion created by your mind, a smooth path laid out so you can walk through life without stumbling over the complexity of events unfolding in parallel. Your consciousness simplifies the world into a gentle sequence, turning what is chaotic into something that feels like a story. You can sense this interface when you observe how different creatures experience the world. A bee sees ultraviolet patterns on flowers that human eyes never notice. A bat sees through echoes, sensing shapes in the dark with sound. A dog understands a room through smell, capturing information we overlook entirely. Each species navigates the same physical environment through a different interface, shaped by what helps it survive. What feels real to us is simply what our human interface allows us to perceive. This doesn't make our reality wrong, it simply means it's personalized. The idea becomes even more interesting when you consider that two humans can have overlapping yet distinct interfaces. A person with synesthesia might hear music and see bursts of colour, while another hears only sound. Someone who grew up in a snowy landscape might instantly distinguish dozens of subtle textures in winter light, while another person sees only a blanket of white. Culture, language, and experience shape the interface, guiding the mind towards certain details and away from others. You might equate this to adjusting the settings on a camera: brightness, contrast, saturation. The scene is the same, yet the interpretation shifts. There is a gentle comfort in accepting that what we perceive is not the ultimate structure of reality, but a softened, curated version meant to help us move gracefully through our lives. This idea invites curiosity rather than fear. It encourages you to wonder, what might exist beyond the edge of your awareness? What invisible details shape your choices, your feelings, your relationships? How might the world look if your interface were tuned just slightly differently? You can notice this tuning most clearly during moments of heightened emotion. When you're anxious, colours feel harsher, sounds sharper, and time seems to speed up. When you're calm, those same colours appear softer, sounds more soothing, and time seems to slow. This shifting quality hints that perception isn't fixed, it's responsive, sensitive to the inner state of your consciousness. The interface adjusts itself according to what you need or expect. Sometimes it narrows to focus on danger. Sometimes it opens wide to let in joy. You are constantly negotiating reality, often without realizing it. Imagine standing on a quiet beach at dusk. The colours soften as the sun sinks. The air cools. Waves rise and fall in a rhythm that seems almost like breathing. In that moment, your interface shifts. Your mind doesn't calculate the angle of light scattering through the atmosphere or the frequency of the waves. Instead, it gives you something far more meaningful, a sense of peace, a feeling of belonging. The beauty of the moment is not an objective quality of the scene. It is something your interface creates, a merging of outer signals and inner stillness. This becomes even more apparent when you consider how easily reality can be tricked. A simple optical illusion can make lines appear bent or straight depending on the surrounding shapes. A magic trick can convince your eyes that something impossible has happened. Your interface is not designed to detect every detail. It is designed to give you just enough information to function smoothly. In a way, it prioritizes grace over accuracy. It chooses what feels coherent rather than what is complete. Even your sense of self is part of this interface. The feeling of being you, a stable, continuous presence looking out at the world, is another helpful construction. It gathers your memories, your emotions, your history, and your intentions into a single narrative thread. But if you've ever had a moment where you felt strangely detached from yourself, or if you've watched your thoughts come and go without controlling them, you've glimpsed the edges of this interface slipping away, it's not a flaw, it's a quiet reminder that the self is part of the same translation process, a character created to navigate the world's complexities. All of this leads to a gentle but profound realization. You're not simply observing reality from behind a glass wall. You're participating in the making of it. Your consciousness, your interface, your inner artist, they work together to transform the vast, unknowable complexity of the universe into something warm, familiar, and livable. And in that careful transformation lies a kind of beauty. You are not separate from the world you experience. You're woven into it, shaping it even as it shapes you. As we drift onward, we'll continue exploring how this inner interface not only presents the world, but quietly collaborates with your expectations, emotions, and memories to create the reality you call your own. If you pause for a moment and let your awareness soften, you may notice something delicate about the way time feels. It doesn't drop into your mind in separate pieces, like beads falling onto a table one by one. Instead, it washes over you in a gentle flow, a continuous ribbon that carries you forward without interruption. Seconds seem to blend into one another. Moments blur at the edges. The present never feels like a single point, but more like a softly expanding window, wide enough to hold the last breath you took and the next one already forming. This subtle feeling hints at a profound truth. Your sense of time is not delivered to you by the world. It is created by your consciousness. Imagine listening to a song. If time truly arrived as tiny flashes, you wouldn't hear a melody. You would hear isolated notes, chopped into pieces, but you don't experience music that way. You hear it as a smooth curve, each note spilling gently into the next. Your mind gathers small slices of sound and blends them into a single experience that feels whole. This blending happens so effortlessly that you rarely notice it. Yet it is one of the most important gifts your consciousness gives you, the ability to feel the world as a continuous unfolding rather than a stuttering sequence of snapshots. You can sense this blending most clearly in motion. When someone waves their hand or a bird glides across the sky, you don't see a series of still images, you see flow. But in a sense, your eyes are taking snapshots. It is your mind that turns them into motion. You might think of it like watching a lantern being swayed back and forth in the dark. The light leaves a trail in your vision, even though the lantern itself only occupies one place at a time. The trail is not in the world. It is in your perception. Your awareness is smoothing jagged edges, creating continuity where none exists. When you walk down a street, your mind predicts the next steps before your feet touch the ground. It fills the near future with a subtle expectation of what should happen next. The swing of your arms, the rhythm of your steps, the shifting scenery. And when the world cooperates, time feels steady. But if something unexpected occurs, an unfamiliar sound, a sudden movement, your sense of time changes. It might slow, stretch, or momentarily hesitate. This is not because time itself changed, but because your inner rhythm was interrupted. The ribbon wavered. Think about moments of fear. People often describe time as slowing down. They recall details they normally would overlook, the pattern on a wall, the sound of their own breathing, the exact expression on a stranger's face. What is actually happening is that the mind widens the window of awareness, letting more information pour in. The world feels sharper, more detailed, because your attention expands. A moment becomes dense, the ribbon thickens, and when the danger passes, the ribbon narrows again, returning to its gentle flow. The opposite happens during joy or absorption. When you're deeply engaged in something you love, an absorbing book, a lively conversation, a moment of creativity, time seems to fade entirely. Hours slip by unnoticed. The outer markers of time disappear, replaced by the inner rhythm of your experience. The ribbon becomes so smooth that you forget it's there at all. This feeling, often called flow, is another sign that time is shaped from within. You walk through it not by ticking seconds, but by the texture of your own awareness. Even memory participates in this soft creation. You might think of memories as recordings stored somewhere in your mind, but that image is too mechanical. A better way to imagine memory is as a series of paintings that your mind refreshes each time you look at them. They change subtly with every revisit, colours deepening, edges softening, shapes shifting. This is why some memories feel more vivid over time while others fade into hazy outlines. Your consciousness is not retrieving them, it is recreating them. And this recreation, this gentle repainting, shapes your sense of time. Past moments feel close or distant depending on how often your awareness refreshes them. This repainting also explains why time can seem inconsistent. Childhood summers feel impossibly long, while adult years pass in what feels like a single breath. When you're young, everything is new, and newness slows your inner clock. Each day brings unfamiliar details that stretch the ribbon of time. As you grow older, routines form, and familiarity compresses experience. The ribbon narrows and months glide by with surprising speed. Nothing has changed outside you. The difference is in how your consciousness arranges the days. Even the future is shaped in this way. When you anticipate something, an event you long for, or a responsibility you dread, your mind begins to construct it before it arrives. The approaching moment gains shape, colour, and emotional weight long before the world delivers it. anticipation becomes a shadow cast forward in time. You are already experiencing a piece of tomorrow today. The ribbon extends not only behind you, but ahead, weaving past, present, and future into a single lived moment. The blending of time is not something the brain explains with symbols or formulas. It is not a calculation unfolding in a hidden region. It is a soft choreography, guided by awareness, emotion, memory, and anticipation. If time in physics is like a coordinate, a quiet mark on a cosmic map, then time in consciousness is something else entirely. You might think of it as the rhythm of a story, the gentle pacing of your inner life, the flow of meaning rather than the march of seconds. It is the feeling of being carried through experience, not the measurement of how far you have travelled. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this: your experience of time is deeply personal. No two people feel a moment in exactly the same way. The same hour can be a blur for one person and a lifetime for another. Time bends around your attention, your emotions, your memories, your hopes. It is shaped by your conscious lens as intimately as colour, sound, or touch. If you listen closely, you can almost sense the ribbon now. A quiet unfolding beneath your thoughts, a smoothness that keeps you gently afloat in the stream of your own life. It doesn't hurry you, it doesn't demand precision. It simply carries you forward with a soft steadiness, letting each moment merge with the next in a way that feels just right for you. As we continue, we'll begin to explore how this inner experience of time, this continuous ribbon, intertwines with expectation, emotion, and belief to create the unique reality you live in each day. As we drift deeper into this exploration of your conscious lens, it becomes clearer that reality is not only shaped by what your senses deliver, but also by the quiet expectations that rise from within. These expectations act like a soft tint over the world, subtly altering the colours of your experience. They whisper suggestions to your awareness before a moment even unfolds. And while you may not always notice their influence, they guide you, gently and continuously, shaping what feels real long before your eyes or ears confirm it. You can sense this whenever you wait for news, good or bad. If you're hopeful, everything around you seems brighter. If you're anxious, even the smallest details might seem sharp or unsettling. Nothing in the environment has changed, yet your inner world colours your outer one. This is the quiet influence of belief. Expectations work like a forecast your mind issues before the day arrives. They set a tone, a background hum that shapes how each moment feels. For instance, think about walking into a conversation where you assume someone might be upset with you. Even before a word is spoken, you read their expression differently. A neutral look might seem cold. A brief pause might feel like tension. Conversely, when you believe someone cares deeply for you, their smallest gestures feel warm and full of meaning. These shifts are not illusions, they are interpretations, shaped by the stories you have been telling yourself. Imagine watching a close sports match. When you believe your team is skilled, every move seems promising, every stumble recoverable. But if you expect them to lose, the same moves can feel like signs of collapse. The physical reality on the screen never changes, only the lens through which you view it does. This quiet shaping happens in countless small ways throughout your life, colouring moments with meaning, sometimes gently, sometimes intensely. Beliefs also influence perception through the stories we quietly repeat. If you wake up thinking the day will be difficult, your awareness becomes primed to notice challenges. A delayed message becomes a problem. A small mistake feels significant. But if you wake up expecting ease, the same events feel lighter. The world bends toward your inner stance. It doesn't mean the world obeys your thoughts in a magical sense, only that your consciousness selects which details matter most. Your mind chooses which parts of the scene to brighten and which to dim, creating a reality that aligns with your expectations. You might see this clearly in first impressions. If you expect someone to be kind, you notice their gentle laughter, their thoughtful pauses, their willingness to listen. If you expect them to be rude, your attention shifts to every hesitation or poorly chosen word. The same person stands before you, yet two realities unfold depending on the lens you bring. This is not deception, it is selection. Consciousness is always curating the world into something understandable and familiar. Expectations can even shape your experience of physical sensations. Consider tasting a dish you've never tried before. If you've heard rave reviews, you're more likely to interpret the flavour kindly, but if someone warned you it would be unpleasant, even the slightest odd note can confirm that belief. Your tongue receives the same signals either way, but your mind decides which parts to highlight and which to soften. One of the clearest examples of belief shaping reality is the placebo effect. When someone receives a treatment they're told will help, even if the treatment itself contains no active ingredient, their body often responds as though healing has begun. Pain eases, mood improves, the body follows the story the mind accepts. Scientists describe this effect without invoking formulas or complex diagrams. It is simply a sign that belief carries a quiet influence over physiology. The mind and body converse in subtle ways, and belief helps shape the tone of that conversation. This influence can be found in more ordinary moments too. Think about when someone pays you a compliment on a day you already feel confident. It can feel like confirmation. But on a day when you doubt yourself, the same words might feel unconvincing. The compliment doesn't change. Your inner stance does. In this way, belief acts like a soft filter that turns up or down the emotional weight of incoming experiences. Beliefs don't only influence emotions, they influence attention. When you expect something, your awareness becomes finely tuned to notice it. If you believe a friend is upset, you scan their tone and gestures for signs. If you believe opportunities are emerging, you notice small openings you might have ignored before. Expectation acts like a gentle prompt that tells your mind where to look and what to listen for. These inner forecasts can also shape memory. Imagine recalling a moment from long ago. If your belief about a person has changed since then, your memory of their past behaviour may subtly shift. The mind repaints the scene with colours borrowed from the present, adjusting tone, expression, even meaning. Memory is not a perfect archive, it is a living artwork touched by each new interpretation. And because past and present speak to each other through this artwork, your beliefs today can reshape how you remember yesterday, which in turn shapes how you expect tomorrow to unfold. Beliefs do not operate in isolation. They interact with emotion, bodily sensations, habits, and personal history. Together, they weave a familiar pattern, your version of the world, your sense of meaning. You might think of these beliefs as the posture your consciousness holds, the angle from which you lean into experience. A slight shift in that posture can reveal an entirely different landscape. You can observe this when travelling. In a new city, every detail feels fresh. The sound of a market, the layout of streets, the rhythm of conversation. Because you have no expectations yet, your mind receives the world with open curiosity. But in familiar environments, expectation guides perception so strongly that you often overlook things that have been there all along. A small cafe you've never noticed, a tree with an unusual shape, or the way afternoon light falls across the room. Familiarity narrows the lens, curiosity widens it. Understanding how beliefs shape reality doesn't mean forcing yourself to think positively, or pretending difficulties don't exist. It means recognizing that your mind plays an active role in creating coherence and meaning. Reality is not just what happens, it is what you perceive, interpret, and carry. Seeing through belief-tinted glass is not a flaw, it is a reminder of your agency, a reminder that your conscious lens participates in shaping the world you move through, quietly but powerfully. And with that realization comes a gentle sense of possibility. If belief can influence perception, then awareness of belief can influence who you become. Your inner posture is not fixed. Your lens can shift. And with each shift, the world shifts a little with you. If you let your awareness settle gently into your body for a moment, you might begin to notice subtle sensations you usually overlook. The steady rise and fall of your breath, the faint rhythm of your heartbeat, the temperature of the air on your skin. These quiet signals are always present, but they rarely call attention to themselves unless something unusual happens. And yet, they shape your experience of the world far more than you might think. Beneath the surface of your thoughts, your body is constantly whispering to your mind, guiding perception, colouring emotion, and softly shaping the reality you move through each day. Imagine waking up after a restful night of sleep. Even before you open your eyes, there is a gentle pleasantness in your chest, a sense of calm that spills into the way you perceive the morning light, the way you greet the first sounds of the day. Now imagine waking after too little sleep. The same sunlight feels harsher, the same sounds more intrusive. Nothing in the environment changed. What changed is the state of your body, and through it, the tone of your conscious experience. This quiet interplay between bodily signals and mental interpretation is so seamless that you often forget it's happening. You can sense this most clearly when your heart beats faster. Perhaps you've been startled by an unexpected sound in the dark, or you've received a message that fills you with excitement or worry. Before you have time to form a clear thought, your body reacts, heart quickening, breath tightening, muscles preparing. And your mind, always attentive to the body's cues, interprets these changes. A fast heartbeat in a joyful moment feels thrilling. The same heartbeat in a tense moment feels alarming. Your body sets the stage, and your consciousness reads the script. Scientists often describe this connection in clinical terms, but you can imagine it more softly. Your awareness listens to the body the way one listens to a quiet instrument in the background of a song. The instrument doesn't dominate the melody, but it shapes the mood of the entire piece. When your body feels safe, your world feels safe. When your body feels threatened, your world becomes smaller, sharper, more unpredictable. Reality is filtered not only through your senses, but through the state of your inner landscape. Think about how you perceive a familiar room when you're calm versus when you're anxious. In calm moments, the room feels open and spacious. The colours seem warmer, the air feels lighter. But when anxiety is present, the same room can feel constricting, as if the walls have drawn just a bit closer. Your awareness narrows, focusing on what might be wrong rather than what is quietly steady. This narrowing is not caused by the room, it is shaped by the body's signals, which your mind interprets as signs to be vigilant. This is why practices like deep breathing, gentle stretching, or simply placing a hand over your heart can shift your perception of the world so quickly. When the body softens, the mind follows. Breath is like a bridge between the two realms, carrying messages from the physical to the emotional. A slow, steady breath tells your mind, you are safe. And with that signal, the lens through which you see the world becomes clearer, softer, more forgiving. You can observe this body-mind dialogue in the placebo effect as well. When someone believes a treatment will help, the body often responds as though healing is already underway. Pain diminishes, muscles relax, mood lifts. There are no mysterious equations or secret chemicals hidden behind this effect. It is simply the body responding to a story the mind has accepted, shifting its internal balance to match the expectation of relief. You might think of it as the body saying, "If you believe things are getting better, I will help make that belief feel true." Gratitude works in a similar way. When you slow down and focus on something you appreciate, a warm meal, a kind conversation, a quiet moment, the body relaxes. Shoulders drop, breath deepens, a sense of ease spreads through the chest, and with that ease, the world looks slightly brighter. Colours feel more saturated, sounds feel gentler. Gratitude is not a mental trick, it is a full body shift that gently resets your perceptual lens. This influence isn't limited to calm or joyful states. Think about how hunger can make small inconveniences feel larger, or how fatigue makes decisions seem heavier. A tired body narrows perception, a nourished body opens it. Even posture plays a role. Standing with your shoulders back and chest open can subtly lift your mood, while collapsing inward can make the world feel heavier. Your body continuously speaks to your awareness in these subtle postures and sensations. Flow states, those moments when you are so immersed in an activity that time seems to dissolve, are another example of this gentle dance. When your body and mind fall into perfect rhythm, distraction fades, movements feel effortless, awareness expands or narrows exactly as needed. This harmony is not achieved through thinking, but through feeling, through the body's seamless cooperation with intention. Your conscious lens becomes finely tuned, seeing only what matters in the moment, ignoring what does not. Mindfulness meditation offers yet another window into this connection. When you sit quietly and observe your breath without trying to change it, you're practicing the art of listening to the body's whispers. You notice the chest rising, the shoulders softening, the subtle pulse beneath your skin. And with that noticing, your perception shifts. The world outside becomes clearer not because it has changed, but because your inner landscape has grown still. Meditation is not about emptying the mind. It is about allowing the body to become steady so that awareness can become gentle. Even visualization techniques, used by athletes, artists, and performers, rely on the body's quiet influence. Imagining yourself performing gracefully can activate the same subtle patterns in your muscles and nervous system as the real action. The body begins to prepare, responding to the image as though it were a rehearsal. This blending of imagination and physical preparation is another form of collaboration between body and mind, where one guides the other. And then there are moments that feel unexplainable at first, when your body senses something before your conscious mind understands it. A sudden shiver when someone is watching you, a tightening in the stomach when something feels off, or a wave of calm when you step into a familiar environment. These sensations are part of the body's quiet language, offering truths that are felt before they are recognized. As you move through life, these bodily whispers create a subtle rhythm beneath every experience. They shape what feels comforting or threatening, familiar or strange, inviting or overwhelming. They guide your attention, influence your emotions, and color your perception of reality. Your conscious lens is not merely a window through the mind alone. It is a collaboration between the outward world, the inner world, and the gentle, wordless world of the body. And with this understanding comes a soft sense of empowerment. You don't have to force your perception to change. You can simply tune into your body, its breath, its posture, its small sensations, and allow your awareness to follow. When the body is soothed, the world appears softer. When the body feels safe, the mind feels spacious. Your inner landscape is not separate from the outer one. They reflect each other, quietly, moment by moment. As you settle into this next part of the journey, you might begin to notice something gently powerful about the way your mind speaks to you. Beneath your conversations with others, beneath your decisions and reactions, there is another voice, a quieter one, telling you stories about who you are, what the world is, and what each moment might mean. This voice does not shout, it does not demand. It whispers, often just beneath awareness, shaping your experience as surely as light shapes the colour of a room. This is your inner narrative, the ongoing story your consciousness creates to guide you through life. And like any story, it can be rewritten. Imagine waking up on a day when you feel confident. Everything seems a little easier. The tasks ahead, the conversations you'll have, even the unexpected twists. It's not that the world changed overnight. What changed is the tone of the story inside you. Now think of a day when you felt weighed down by doubt. Even small tasks felt heavy. Your inner voice repeated a different script, one that made each moment feel more difficult than it truly was. These shifts are not illusions, they are interpretations, threads woven into the way you experience reality. This story your mind tells is shaped by your past, but it is not bound by it. It uses memories the way an artist uses colours, blending them into meanings that feel familiar. And because this story is always being written, moment by moment, you have the gentle opportunity to influence it, to shift the tone, the perspective, or the direction in which it grows. Think about the way you speak to yourself during a mistake. If your inner voice says, "I always do this wrong," the world seems full of obstacles. But if your voice softens and says, "This is just part of learning," the same moment feels lighter. Nothing about the situation changes, only the narrative changes, and with it, your perception of what is possible. This inner narrative becomes even more important when emotions rise. In moments of frustration, fear, or sadness, the story can tilt sharply. Everything is going wrong, or "I'm not ready for this." When joy or hope arrives, the tone tilts another way. Things might turn out better than I thought. Each story influences what you notice, what you ignore, and how you move through the world. You might think of it as the guiding thread of your conscious lens, the quiet commentary that frames your reality. Scientists sometimes describe the sense of self as a model, an ongoing construction created by the mind to organize your experiences. But instead of picturing a diagram or formula, imagine something gentler, a character living inside your awareness, shaped by your memories, your emotions, and your reflections. This character isn't fixed. It changes with every experience you interpret, every belief you adopt, and every story you choose to keep or release. Your inner narrative is not only about the past, it is also about the version of yourself you're becoming. You can see this clearly in moments of reflection. Think about a difficult experience from long ago. At the time, it may have felt overwhelming, but when you revisit it years later, the meaning may have changed. Perhaps the pain softened, or the lesson became clearer, or the event transformed into something that added depth to your life. The memory itself did not change, the story surrounding it did. Your mind repainted the moment with new colours, giving it a different place in your life. This repainting is not limited to the past. You also, often unconsciously, paint the future. When you imagine a challenge ahead, your inner narrative might focus on obstacles or on opportunities. If you expect disappointment, your awareness prepares a story of caution, filtering the world through that lens. If you expect growth, your awareness opens itself to new possibilities. This anticipatory storytelling can influence how you speak, how you act, even how your body feels. A hopeful narrative can relax your breath, a fearful one can tighten it. Even the simple act of imagining a better outcome can shift how you experience the present. Athletes often visualize a graceful performance before they begin, not as a dream, but as a rehearsal. Musicians imagine a smooth passage of notes. Speakers imagine their words flowing calmly. These visions are not fantasies. They are stories the mind uses to guide the body, aligning intention and movement. The narrative becomes a bridge between imagination and action. You may have had moments when changing your inner narrative altered your experience instantly. Perhaps you were about to meet someone new and you whispered to yourself, "Just be open." Suddenly the encounter felt different, not because the other person changed, but because your inner posture shifted. Or perhaps you were facing a painful memory and said to yourself, "I survived this." The memory didn't disappear, but it softened. You created space around it. Reality responded to your new story. One of the gentlest ways to rewrite your narrative is through mindfulness. When you observe your thoughts without clinging to them, you begin to see which ones are stories rather than truths. You notice the ones that repeat out of habit. You notice the ones that echo old fears, and you begin to notice the space between the thought and the thinker, the space where choice lives. In that space, you can decide whether to keep a story, reshape it, or let it go entirely. Another quiet tool is self-compassion. When you speak to yourself with kindness, your inner narrative becomes softer. Instead of saying, "I should have known better," you might say, "I did the best I could with what I understood then." This shift is not indulgent, it is healing. It invites your awareness to see the world through gentler eyes, reshaping your reality from the inside out. Journaling can also illuminate the patterns in your inner story. When words fall onto the page, they reveal the tone of your inner voice, the fears, the repetitions, the hopes. Sometimes simply writing a thought down loosens its grip, making it easier to rewrite. And other times, the act of writing shows you a narrative that no longer fits, inviting you to craft a new one. Through all of this, your inner narrative remains one of the most powerful forces shaping your perception. It can narrow your world or open it. It can hold you back or help you grow. It can paint life in harsh tones or in soft ones, and because it is always being written, moment by moment, it holds an extraordinary truth. You are never trapped in the old version of yourself. You can begin a new chapter at any time simply by listening to the stories you tell and gently offering them new meanings. Wherever you go, your narrative travels with you, and as it shifts, your reality shifts as well, quietly at first, then more clearly, until the world begins to reflect the new story you're learning to tell. As we drift a little further along this quiet journey, it becomes natural to widen the lens beyond the boundaries of the individual mind. Until now, we've explored how your consciousness shapes the world you personally experience, how expectations, emotions, and bodily whispers weave your private reality. But you do not move through life alone. You step into rooms filled with other minds, each carrying their own lens, their own stories, their own ways of seeing. And when these minds meet, something remarkable happens. Realities begin to merge, to blend, to echo, and sometimes to collide. This shared space, where individual worlds intersect, is the collective canvas of human experience. Imagine entering a crowded marketplace at the edge of evening. Lanterns flicker. Vendors call out softly. People negotiate with smiles or gestures. To you, it might feel lively and warm. To someone else standing beside you, perhaps more sensitive to noise or movement, the same scene might feel overwhelming. A third person, raised in a different culture, might interpret a familiar gesture as friendliness or as offense. The environment is the same, yet three different realities unfold quietly beside one another. This is the simplest glimpse of the collective canvas, shared moments interpreted through different lenses, overlapping but not identical. From the moment you're born, your consciousness begins absorbing the stories of others. The language you hear shapes what you notice and how you categorize the world. Some languages have many words for a single color, teaching the mind to perceive shades others overlook. Some have different ways of describing time, guiding the mind to experience past and future in distinct patterns. Even emotional expression is colored by culture. In some places, a loud sigh is a sign of frustration. In others, it is simply a way of releasing tension. None of these differences are mistakes. They are reflections of the collective lens you inherit. You might think of this collective influence as a kind of gentle weaving. Each word you learn, each norm you absorb, each ritual you experience becomes a thread stitched into your awareness. These threads guide how you interpret the actions of others and how you express yourself in return. They help you navigate social spaces, deciding when to smile, when to remain quiet, when to bow your head, when to speak. Without this shared weaving, human interaction would feel disorienting, like trying to dance to music that shifts unpredictably. With it, even strangers can communicate through glances, gestures, and patterns of behavior that their cultures have quietly shaped. Consider color for a moment. A certain shade of red might evoke celebration in one part of the world and mourning in another. A gesture of gratitude in one region might be misunderstood in another. Even facial expressions, which feel universal, carry subtle variations. The collective canvas teaches you how to interpret these signals, helping you read meaning in the world around you. Rituals are another part of this canvas. Think of the small traditions you grew up with. Lighting a candle, sharing food during holidays, touching an object for good luck. These rituals may seem simple, yet they hold great power because they bind individuals into a shared story. When many people repeat the same gesture with the same intention, the gesture becomes more than an action. It becomes part of a collective reality. It shapes how events are interpreted, how comfort is found, how meaning is carried from one generation to the next. Superstitions also reveal how shared beliefs can create a collective experience. A group of people might agree that a certain number brings misfortune, or that a certain day holds promise. Even if the belief has no physical force, it alters behavior, decisions, and emotions. It shapes reactions and expectations. A superstition believed by many becomes a small, shared ripple in reality, a thread woven across countless minds. Signals of trust operate similarly. A handshake, a bow, eye contact, a particular tone of voice. All of these carry meaning shaped by the collective. Without ever being explicitly taught, you learn to interpret these signals from the community around you. They help you sense when someone is sincere or when they are hiding something. These shared signals allow humans to coordinate, to cooperate, and to build relationships that stretch beyond individual understanding. You can glimpse the power of the collective canvas during festivals or gatherings. Hundreds or thousands of people come together, sharing attention, emotion, and rhythm. For a moment, individual realities converge into one shared experience. Lights, music, voices rising together. In these moments, you feel part of something larger, a reality held not only within your own mind, but between many minds at once. That shared feeling is not just emotion, it is a temporary alignment of perception. The collective canvas also shapes how history is remembered. Stories passed down over generations become shared truths, even if each individual interprets them slightly differently. A nation, a community, or even a family builds its identity from these stories. They become part of how people see themselves and how they see the world. They guide moral choices, inspire creativity, and influence how people respond to challenges. When a group agrees on a narrative, That narrative becomes a kind of shared reality, powerful enough to guide action. But the collective canvas is not always harmonious. When different groups hold tightly to different narratives, realities can clash. The same event can be interpreted in contradictory ways, leading to disagreement or misunderstanding. This does not mean one side is wrong and the other right. It means they are seeing through different lenses shaped by different histories, different languages, different emotional patterns. Understanding this can soften conflict. It can remind you that reality is multi-layered, and that each person carries a world inside them shaped by countless unseen influences. Even within close relationships, the collective canvas plays a role. Two people living in the same home may still carry different expectations and interpretations. One may see a quiet moment as peaceful. Another may interpret it as distance. Each perspective is valid within its own lens. But when awareness enters the picture, when you understand that others see the world through their own inner filters, you begin to navigate relationships with more gentleness, patience, and empathy. You begin to appreciate the intricacy of shared reality. And perhaps the most comforting part is this: the collective canvas is not static. It changes as people change, languages evolve, norms shift, stories expand or fade. New rituals emerge, shared beliefs soften or strengthen. Humanity is always rewriting its collective experience, just as individuals rewrite their own narratives. Your reality is shaped not only by your mind, but by the minds of countless others weaving alongside you. As we continue, we'll gently explore how the modern world, especially the digital one, creates new layers of this collective canvas, rearranging what we see and inviting us into shared experiences that are both familiar and entirely new. As we drift onward through the tapestry of shared realities, the world around us becomes more intricate, especially in this age where so much of human connection now flows through digital spaces. The collective canvas no longer exists only in markets, homes, and quiet conversations. It now stretches into the glowing rectangles we hold in our hands, the screens that deliver news, conversations, and possibilities in an endless stream. And gently woven into these streams are patterns shaped not only by people, but by algorithms. Those quiet, unseen systems that try to predict what we might want, what we might enjoy, and even what we might believe. These systems are often described in technical terms, but you can imagine them more softly. Picture a mirror that learns from the way you look at it. Each time you glance at a particular topic, linger on an image, or pause over a sentence, the mirror remembers. It takes note of what drew your attention, like a companion who watches you closely. And over time, this mirror begins to reflect only the parts of the world it thinks you want to see. It trims away what it believes you'll ignore. It brightens what it believes will engage you. It becomes a personalized reflection, comforting, familiar, and subtly curated. This is the heart of what people call a filter bubble, though bubble might not be the perfect metaphor. It is more like a gentle cocoon, soft, warm, and tailored to your preferences. Inside this cocoon, the digital world feels easier to navigate. You see the voices that resonate with you, the opinions that align with yours, the rhythms that feel familiar. But as the cocoon thickens, the edges of the wider world blur. What is outside becomes dimmer. Differences begin to feel distant or even surprising. The cocoon is meant to be helpful, but it can quietly narrow your view. This narrowing does not happen abruptly. It happens in small increments, almost imperceptibly. One day you search for a topic out of curiosity. The next day you see more posts about it. A week later, the algorithm, your attentive mirror, believes this is the world you want, so it gives you more of the same. not because it wants to mislead you, but because it follows a simple logic: show you more of what keeps your attention. Yet the mind is shaped by what it repeatedly encounters. When you see only certain stories, certain interpretations, certain perspectives, they begin to feel like the whole truth rather than one version of it. Imagine walking into a library where the shelves rearrange themselves based on your previous choices. If you read one book on astronomy, suddenly the astronomy section expands and glows with soft light, while biographies or poetry fade gently into the background. This might feel magical at first, like the library understands you. But after a while, you might forget the other sections exist. The library becomes a reflection of your interests, but not a window into the full richness of human knowledge. The digital world works in a similar way, quietly shaping the shelves around you. This shaping becomes even more intricate when we consider images and videos. In the past, a photograph carried the assumption of truth. It was a record of what happened. But in today's world, the line between what is captured and what is crafted has grown soft. With a few adjustments, colour shifts, subtle edits, or more advanced manipulations, an image can be transformed into something that feels real, but isn't. These crafted images are not inherently harmful. Many are created for art, humour, or storytelling, but when they blend seamlessly with truth, they contribute to a landscape where certainty becomes more elusive. You might think of deep fakes, videos where a person's face is replaced with astonishing accuracy. Instead of imagining them in a technical way, picture them as reflections in a pond. Sometimes the reflection shows the real person, sometimes it shows a version of them that never existed. The water looks smooth either way. Your mind trusts the reflection because it resembles what you expect to see. And because these crafted reflections can be so convincing, they add another layer of complexity to the collective canvas, one where seeing is no longer enough to believe. As our digital mirrors refine what we see, they also shape how we feel. If you frequently encounter messages of fear, the world may begin to seem more dangerous. If you encounter messages of anger, conflict may feel closer than it truly is. If you see only people who agree with your views, disagreement can feel like hostility rather than a natural part of human diversity. The algorithm does not choose sides. It simply reflects the emotional tone of your interactions. But those reflections, repeated day after day, begin to carve grooves in your perception, guiding your expectations the way water shapes stone. This leads to a curious phenomenon in the digital age: the emergence of subjective multiverses. Many people may live in the same physical world but move through different worlds of information. One person's daily reality might be filled with stories of crisis, another's might be filled with stories of progress, a third might be immersed in humour and creativity. They may even discuss the same event and describe entirely different realities, not because one is lying, but because each has been living inside a different informational landscape. These parallel worlds form quietly, shaped by attention and reinforced by algorithms. Yet this situation is not hopeless or gloomy. It simply reminds us that perception is now shaped by both our inner lens and the digital environments we inhabit. Awareness becomes the antidote. When you recognize the cocoon for what it is, a self-tuning mirror, you can gently step outside it. You can choose to look at perspectives that challenge your own, not as threats, but as windows. You can slow down when confronted with crafted images, letting awareness touch the surface before accepting it as truth. You can remember that the digital world is only one layer of the collective canvas, not its entirety. This understanding brings a soft sense of agency. You're not powerless in the face of these algorithmic lenses. You can widen your view with intention. You can choose depth over immediacy. You can seek nuance in a world that often delivers simplicity. And in doing so, you help your conscious lens remain flexible, open, and connected to the broader world. The emergence of digital echo chambers is not a sign that humanity is losing its way. It is a sign that we are entering a new phase of shared reality, one that invites more awareness, more curiosity, and more intentionality. Your consciousness does not simply receive the world, it participates in shaping which world you see. And with a gentle shift in attention, you can choose a wider, more spacious canvas. As we drift deeper into the realm of shared realities, the landscape around us grows wider and more intricate. Each of us carries a private world inside, a world shaped by memory, emotion, expectation. But when many private worlds begin to move in the same direction, something larger emerges. It's as if countless small streams converge into a river, shaping the flow of perception on a scale far beyond any individual mind. These moments, when human consciousness sways together, reveal the quiet power of collective experience. You can sense this when a group of people gathers around a single event, whether beautiful or frightening. Think of standing in a crowd watching fireworks bloom across the sky. For a brief moment, hundreds of people inhale at the same time, their attention drawn upward in a shared breath of wonder. Or think of sitting in a theatre, the entire audience falling silent at the same instant, suspended in the same emotion. In these moments, individual awareness merges into something larger, a shared dream. The world feels coordinated, as though each person's inner lens has aligned for a heartbeat. But collective shifts are not always gentle. History is full of moments when groups of people became swept up in fear, confusion, or uncertainty. There were times when communities believed the night was filled with hidden dangers, or when a strange sound was interpreted as a sign of impending harm. These waves of feeling often grew not because of evidence, but because each person's fear became a mirror for the next. Emotion travelled from mind to mind like a quiet spark moving along a line of dry leaves. Once ignited, the spark expanded, shaping experience for many people at once. Think of a rumour spreading through a small town, a whispered "something is wrong," repeated until it grows into a story of danger. The mind, sensitive to the emotions of others, begins to fill in the gaps. A shadow becomes a threat. A sudden movement becomes a sign. This is not irrationality. It is a deeply human response. Our awareness evolved to attune itself to the reactions of those around us. When many minds sense danger, each individual mind becomes more watchful. The collective emotion amplifies individual perception, creating a shared reality even when the physical world has not changed. Such moments are sometimes called mass hysteria, but that term feels too harsh, almost dismissive. It misses the gentle truth that people are always responding to the emotional atmosphere around them. When many people tilt toward fear, the world begins to take on a shadowed tone. When many tilt toward hope, the world brightens. Shared experience does not override reality, it filters it, colouring it in broad strokes across entire communities. Even moral panics, those times in history when societies became convinced that certain behaviours or ideas were dangerous, began as small whispers. A worry grows into a belief into an assumption, and soon the assumption becomes a story that many people accept as truth. Once accepted, the story gains power. It shapes laws, customs, and even memory. Entire generations may inherit its colour without knowing how it began. But collective shifts are not always driven by fear. They can also arise from shared creativity, shared compassion, shared longing. Think of movements that brought people together to seek justice, or to rebuild after a disaster, or simply to celebrate moments of beauty. When one person stands with courage, others feel steadier. When a few voices begin to sing, others join, and soon a whole crowd moves in harmony. Shared experience can lift or lower the human spirit. It can spread confusion, but it can also spread clarity, kindness, and healing. You might imagine these shared emotions as gentle currents in a larger ocean. Each person is a wave, unique, shifting, but the waves together create tides. These tides shape the shores of society, slowly altering what feels normal, acceptable, or true. They influence what people talk about, what they worry about, and what they hope for. When a collective shift happens, it's not because of a single event alone. It's because countless minds softly lean in the same direction, even if for different reasons. In recent years, the world has experienced several moments when collective perception shifted almost overnight. A global pandemic, for example, altered how billions of people interpreted everyday experiences. Something as simple as a cough in a public place, once barely noticed, became charged with meaning. Hands resting on surfaces felt suddenly important. Space, something invisible, became precious. Reality didn't change instantly, perception did. And that shift, repeated across millions of minds, reshaped daily life for everyone. Climate change has created another shared lens. Even people living in different countries, cultures, and climates feel the subtle weight of the same concern. The same rising temperatures, the same shifting seasons, the same fragile balance of nature that once seemed eternal now invites collective reflection. A warm winter, a sudden storm, a changing coastline, these are interpreted not just as isolated events but as pieces of a shared global story. Memes, those small, often humorous bits of culture, also show how ideas travel softly from mind to mind. A phrase, a picture, or a gesture can spread across millions of people in a matter of days, shaping conversations, creating inside jokes, or even influencing how people interpret events. Though light-hearted, memes demonstrate how easily shared meaning takes root. They remind us that ideas can be contagious in the gentlest ways, carried not through logic alone but through emotion, rhythm, and resonance. These travelling ideas are sometimes described in academic language, but you can imagine them more softly as seeds drifting through the air. Some land in fertile soil and grow, others fall onto stone and fade. The seeds that grow shape the landscape, not just for one mind, but for many. They bloom into beliefs, habits, and patterns of behaviour that subtly guide the collective. And then there is the possibility, still mysterious, still partly hidden, of collective intention. There are moments when groups of people focus on the same hope or goal, and in doing so create conditions where change feels possible. You can sense this in shared acts of compassion, when communities respond to tragedy with remarkable generosity. You can sense it in peaceful gatherings, where thousands of people stand in silence, offering a kind of shared steadiness to the world around them. Whether or not this intention alters physical reality, it certainly alters emotional reality. It creates a sense of connection, of belonging, of unity, however temporary, however fragile. As we glide forward, it becomes clear that your reality is shaped not only by your own lens, but by the lenses of countless others. You're both an individual wave and part of the tide. Understanding this does not diminish your autonomy. Instead, it deepens your awareness of the larger currents that carry us all. And with that awareness comes a gentle invitation to approach collective emotions with compassion, to remain open to other perspectives, and to remember that shared dreams, whether hopeful or uncertain, are simply many inner worlds moving together. As we begin this new part of our quiet journey, the landscape shifts once more. not outward into the wide terrain of collective experience, but gently inward toward the softest layers of your own awareness. After drifting through the ways reality is shaped by mind, body, and the shared emotions of many people, we now return to a quieter space, a place where you can observe the workings of your own inner lens. This is a moment of slowing down, of noticing the small details that often slip past, of seeing not just the world, but the way you see the world. Imagine yourself sitting beside a window on a gentle afternoon. Outside, trees sway in a calm rhythm, and light settles across the floor in long, warm stripes. You watch the scene without trying to change it. There is no need to judge the clouds or analyze the breeze, you simply observe. And in that act of simple observation, something subtle begins to unfold. You're not only seeing the world, you're seeing yourself see it. This gentle shift is at the heart of mindfulness, though the word mindfulness sometimes feels heavier than it needs to. At its essence, it is simply the act of noticing. Noticing your breath without controlling it. Noticing your thoughts without wrestling them. Noticing your emotions without becoming lost in them. It is like holding a lantern inside your mind, casting a soft glow over your own perceptions so you can see how they move, how they change, how they colour the world around you. Most of the time, perception happens automatically. A sound enters your ears, you interpret it instantly. A person makes a gesture. You assign it meaning before you even realise you've decided. A memory rises, your heart reacts before your thoughts catch up. This automatic process is not a flaw. It is part of how consciousness keeps you safe, organised, and steady. But when you never look at the lens that shapes these reactions, you may begin to mistake the lens for the world itself. Mindfulness invites you to step gently back from that automatic flow, allowing you to see the patterns within your own perception. It's like sitting in a theatre and realising that you can watch not only the film, but the light projecting it. You can see the space between frames. You can sense the distance between the story and the storyteller. This space is where awareness becomes more expansive, more forgiving, and more free. Imagine you hear someone speak in a hurried tone. Your immediate instinct might be to interpret the tone as impatience. But if you pause, if you shine that inner lantern on your perception, you may begin to notice that your reaction stems from past experiences, from old assumptions, from stories your mind has carried for years. The tone may have nothing to do with you. It may simply be the rhythm they speak in when they're tired, or stressed, or lost in thought. This brief pause, this noticing, can soften an entire moment. It can transform tension into understanding. In this way, seeing the lens allows you to step out of automatic reactions and into conscious choice. You begin to sense when your thoughts are tangled, when emotions pull you one way or another, when your expectations are whispering interpretations before the world has even spoken. This kind of noticing doesn't require effort or discipline. It simply asks you to slow down enough to feel your awareness sitting inside your experience rather than rushing through it. Consider the moment when frustration arises. Perhaps someone speaks over you, or a message arrives at the wrong time, or something unexpected interrupts your plans. The emotion rises quickly, like a sudden gust of wind. But if you observe the feeling as it emerges, its warmth, its tightness, the story it begins to tell, you may discover that the feeling itself is fleeting and that it doesn't have to dictate your next action. Awareness gives you choice. It turns reaction into response. Mindfulness is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of understanding. It's the ability to witness your inner patterns without being swept away by them. It allows you to feel anger without becoming anger, to feel sadness without drowning in it, to feel joy without clinging to it. It transforms each moment into something more spacious, more breathable. This spaciousness helps you see your perception more clearly. You start noticing when you're interpreting a situation through fear, or through excitement, or through exhaustion. You begin to sense when your body's tension is shaping your thoughts, or when a memory is colouring your current experience. And with each noticing, the world becomes a little more open, a little less tightly controlled by habit. You might think of a lake at dawn. When the water is agitated, the reflections distort and blur. But when the lake settles, it mirrors the sky with perfect clarity. Mindfulness is not about forcing your mind to be still. It is about letting it settle naturally, like water left untouched. When your awareness rests in this stillness, your perception becomes clearer, not because the world changed, but because the inner ripples calmed. Another gentle benefit of seeing your own lens is that you begin to understand others more deeply. When you notice your own assumptions, you become less attached to them. When you see how easily your mind interprets things incorrectly, you become more patient with the interpretations of others. You realize everyone is moving through reality using a lens shaped by experiences you may never know. Empathy grows naturally in this awareness, like a flower turning softly toward the sun. Letting perception soften instead of reacting instantly also creates room for unexpected beauty. When you pause before labeling something as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, you give yourself the chance to experience the moment as it is. A sound becomes simply a sound. A feeling becomes simply a feeling. This simplicity can be calming, even healing. It reminds you that not everything needs to be judged or categorized. Some moments can simply be lived. And perhaps the most empowering aspect of mindfulness is that it doesn't require perfect focus. You don't need to sit in silence for hours or keep your mind empty. Even a few seconds of awareness, one slow breath, one soft noticing, can shift the way a moment unfolds. Each time you illuminate your own lens, even briefly, you loosen the grip of habit and expand the possibilities of how you respond to the world. As we continue this journey, we'll gently explore how awareness not only reveals the inner lens, but also allows you to reshape it, to rewrite the stories you tell yourself, to reframe your experiences, and to create a reality aligned with clarity, compassion, and choice. As we continue drifting inward through the gentle landscape of your conscious lens, a new idea emerges, one that carries both softness and strength. It is the simple, transformative practice of reframing. Reframing is not about denying what you feel or pretending that difficult moments are pleasant. Instead, it is the subtle art of changing the story you tell yourself about what is happening. It is the practice of shifting perspective, not to erase reality, but to see it from a vantage point that brings clarity rather than confusion, openness rather than contraction. Imagine holding a photograph close to your face, so near that you can see only a blur of shapes and colours. When you take a step back, the details come into focus. When you take another step, you see the entire picture. The photograph hasn't changed, only your distance has. Reframing works the same way. It gently widens your view, allowing you to step out of the narrow story that first arises and into a broader understanding of the moment. Consider a small, everyday frustration. Perhaps someone cuts in front of you in a line, or a message you expect doesn't arrive, or a friend speaks more sharply than usual. The immediate reaction might be irritation, disappointment, or hurt. These emotions are valid. They arise naturally. But if you pause for a moment, if you soften your gaze and shift the angle of interpretation, a new story can emerge. Perhaps the person who cut in line is distracted by something heavy on their mind. Perhaps the delayed message is simply a matter of timing. Perhaps your friend's tone comes from fatigue rather than anger. Nothing forces you to accept these new interpretations, but allowing them to exist opens a quiet path toward understanding. Reframing is not about creating excuses. It is about recognizing that your first interpretation is only one possibility. When you give yourself permission to explore others, your inner world expands. You no longer feel confined to a single story. You begin to see the situation and yourself with gentler eyes. One of the most powerful forms of reframing appears in the realm of forgiveness. Think of a moment when someone hurt you, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps carelessly. For a long time, the story may have been they wronged me or they should have done better. These interpretations may be true, but they can keep your heart heavy. When you reframe the story to they were acting from their own wounded place, or they were trapped in their own fear, something shifts. The pain doesn't vanish, but its edges soften. Forgiveness becomes possible, not because the past changes, but because your interpretation evolves. Reframing can also transform how you view your own actions. Many people carry old mistakes like stones in their pockets, weighing down their daily life. You may look back on something you said, or something you failed to do, and think, I should have known better. But this story assumes that the version of you today, the wiser, older, more experienced version, was present at the time. A gentle reframe might be, I made that choice with the understanding I had then. This simple shift lifts the burden. It acknowledges growth. It honors your journey. The 10-year rule is another soft way to reframe. Imagine looking back on an event from the vantage point of a decade later. Time creates space. Emotions settle, context expands, and the story changes without being forced. What once felt catastrophic might now seem like a turning point. What once felt like failure might now appear as the necessary step towards something better. When you apply this perspective in the present, asking yourself how today's difficulty might look years from now, you create room for hope. You remind yourself that the meaning of a moment is not fixed. Humor is also a powerful reframing tool. It doesn't mean mocking difficulty, but rather allowing the mind to look at a situation with a lighter touch. Imagine spilling coffee on yourself just before a meeting. The initial story may be embarrassment or frustration, but if you step back and smile at the absurdity of the moment, the story softens. You remind yourself of your humanity. You create a little distance. Humor acts like a breeze clearing the fog of seriousness, revealing a gentler landscape beneath. Reframing also appears in how you perceive challenges. When something difficult arises, the instinctive narrative might be, why is this happening to me? But with a shift of perspective, the story can become, what is this teaching me? Or how might this shape me? This change of narrative doesn't erase discomfort, but it brings purpose and direction to it. It transforms resistance into curiosity, tension into resilience. Even physical sensations can be reframed. A quickened heartbeat can be interpreted as anxiety or as excitement. A flutter in the stomach can be dread or anticipation. These feelings share the same physical signals. The difference lies in the story you choose to weave around them. In this way, reframing becomes a bridge between body and mind, offering a new path through moments that once felt overwhelming. There are times when reframing can transform an entire relationship with the world. Imagine waking up to a rainy morning. The first story might be inconvenience. But with a gentle shift, rain becomes an invitation to slow down, to listen to the soft percussion on windows, to savour the warmth of indoor spaces. The moment has not changed, but your experience of it has. Reframing is not a denial of difficulty or a forced positivity. It is a practice of choosing the most compassionate, most spacious, most empowering story available. It is the act of noticing the narrow frame your mind first offers and gently widening it until you can breathe more freely within it. It allows your conscious lens to grow flexible, able to bend instead of break. And with practice, reframing becomes less of an effort and more of a natural rhythm. You begin to notice your mind's first reaction and hold it with curiosity. You pause before deciding what the moment means. You let the story breathe, unfold, and expand. This pause, this spaciousness, is where freedom lives. It is where the world becomes not just something that happens to you, but something you shape through perception. As we drift onward, we'll explore another form of gentle self-awareness, mapping the inner world through writing, and how the simple act of putting words on paper can illuminate the shapes of your thoughts, revealing patterns you never knew were there. As we drift further into this reflective landscape, you may begin to sense a quiet truth rising from beneath all the ideas we've touched so far. The inner world is vast. It stretches far beyond the thoughts you consciously hear into gentle layers of memory, emotion, intuition, and unspoken beliefs. Much of this inner world moves in silence beneath the surface of awareness, and yet it influences your perception, your behavior, your stories, your dreams. One of the simplest and most profound ways to explore this inner world is through the act of writing, not as a task or a chore, but as a slow, gentle form of cartography, drawing a map of a landscape that only you can see. Writing can feel like placing a small lantern along a path you've walked many times without ever noticing its shapes. When thoughts remain inside your mind, they move quickly, blending with emotions, drifting in and out of attention. But when you place them onto a page, they become visible. They take shape. They reveal their edges and outlines. In this way, writing helps you understand not just what you think, but how you think. Imagine opening a blank notebook. The page is quiet, waiting. You begin by writing a single sentence, perhaps a thought you've been carrying or a feeling you can't quite name. As the words fall from your mind onto the paper, something shifts. The thought that once felt foggy becomes clearer. The emotion that felt tangled begins to separate into threads. The quiet page becomes a mirror, reflecting parts of your inner world that often go unnoticed. This reflection doesn't require poetic skill or perfect structure. In fact, writing becomes more honest when you let go of the need to perform or impress. It becomes a private conversation between you and your deeper self. When you write without judgment, without editing as you go, you allow truths to rise that may have been waiting for a long time to be heard. You might notice patterns you didn't realize were shaping your days. Perhaps you write about a frustration, and as the words unfold, you discover it wasn't the situation itself that troubled you, but the expectation you carried into it. Or you write about joy and find that certain experiences consistently light up your inner world. The patterns were always there, but writing helps you see them with warmth and clarity. Sometimes writing reveals limiting beliefs, quiet sentences you've been repeating to yourself without noticing their weight. They may appear in subtle ways. I don't think I can do this, or people like me always struggle, or this is just how I am. When these beliefs appear on paper, they no longer hide in the shadows. You can look at them, question them, and gently loosen their hold. Writing becomes a way of taking these internal phrases and asking softly, is this really true? Or where did this story begin? Or does this belief still serve the person I am becoming? Writing can also bring clarity to uncertainty. When a decision feels overwhelming, thoughts swirl in different directions, colliding and overlapping. But when you place those thoughts on the page, laying them out gently, one after another, they often settle into a shape that feels easier to understand. The act of writing separates the threads, giving each one space to breathe. What once felt chaotic becomes manageable. The path forward, once hidden, begins to reveal itself. Journaling can also deepen emotional understanding. When you write about your feelings, you may notice shades and nuances you had not felt before. Sadness might reveal a longing beneath it. Anger might uncover a boundary that needs tending. Joy might highlight a value that deserves more space in your life. Writing invites these emotions to unfold safely, without pressure, without rushing. It gives you time to sit with them, to understand their roots, and to respond with compassion. There is something uniquely grounding about seeing your thoughts on paper. It transforms the abstract into the tangible. It reminds you that your inner world, though fluid and shifting, can be explored with gentle intention. Writing creates a sense of distance, not the kind that pushes feelings away, but the kind that allows you to view them with perspective. It is the same distance that allows a painter to step back from a canvas, seeing the whole picture instead of just the brush strokes. Some people write to release, letting the thoughts pour out until the mind feels lighter. Others write to remember, capturing small joys or fleeting insights before they fade. Some use writing as a form of gratitude, listing simple moments that brought warmth to the day. Others write letters they never send, giving voice to emotions they've been afraid to express. Each of these forms of writing is a different kind of map, charting the paths your consciousness travels. Even brief writing sessions, 5 minutes, a single paragraph, can open surprising doors. You might begin writing about a mundane event and find yourself discovering something deeper beneath it. The mind has a way of guiding the pen toward what matters, even when you don't intend it. This gentle unfolding is one of the quiet beauties of journaling. It shows you the layers of your own experience, one soft revelation at a time. And writing does not need to be orderly. Some days the words come out in fragments, scattered like leaves across the page. Other days they flow in long, uninterrupted lines. Both forms are valuable. Both reveal the rhythm of your inner self. The goal is not coherence, it is expression. It is stepping into the landscape within you with curiosity rather than judgment. Over time, your journal becomes a map of your growth. You can look back at older pages and see how your perceptions have shifted, how you have reframed certain stories, how your expectations have softened or strengthened. You begin to see yourself not as a fixed character, but as someone continually evolving. Each entry becomes a point on a larger path showing how your inner lens has changed with new insights, new experiences, new choices. This kind of mapping can also help you see the difference between thoughts that visit and thoughts that stay. Some thoughts arise like passing clouds, temporary, light, reflecting the mood of the moment. Others return often, pointing to deeper needs, unresolved questions, or desires waiting to be acknowledged. Writing helps you distinguish between the temporary and the enduring, giving you a clearer sense of where your attention is truly needed. And perhaps the most comforting aspect of journaling is that it creates a private sanctuary, a place where you can be entirely honest, where you can say things without fear of misunderstanding, where you can explore without being seen. In this sanctuary, you are both the storyteller and the listener, the observer and the one observed. It is a space where awareness deepens naturally, without pressure. As we continue this journey, we'll explore how vulnerability, choosing to open your inner world to others, can soften the walls around perception even further, creating new pathways for connection, compassion, and shared understanding. As we continue wandering through the inner landscape of perception, another gentle, transformative quality begins to appear. a quality often misunderstood yet deeply powerful, vulnerability. At first glance, the word may bring to mind fragility, exposure, or risk. But when you step closer, vulnerability reveals itself not as weakness, but as openness. It is the softening of the invisible walls you've built around your inner world. It is the willingness to let others see a glimpse of your true self, even when that self feels tender. And in this softening, something remarkable happens. Your perception shifts, your relationships deepen, and your reality becomes more spacious. Imagine standing with someone you trust, someone who has seen you through small joys and difficult days. There is a moment, perhaps even a brief pause, where you feel safe enough to share something that has been weighing on your heart. As you speak, something inside loosens. It's not that the problem disappears, but that it feels lighter, less tangled. The simple act of being seen softens the edges of the moment. This is the quiet strength of vulnerability. When your inner world is shared gently, the experience of reality becomes less solitary, less sharp. Vulnerability also invites clarity. When you allow yourself to express how you truly feel, without disguising the emotion or presenting a polished version of yourself, you begin to see your inner reactions more clearly. You notice the patterns beneath your defenses. You discover the fears hidden beneath irritation, the longing beneath sadness, the hope beneath hesitation. Vulnerability acts like a warm light cast over a shadowed room, revealing what was present all along but difficult to see. And when you offer this openness to others, a remarkable thing happens. Their inner world also becomes clearer to you. Walls exist on both sides of perception. When you lower yours, even briefly, you create a safe space for someone else to lower theirs. This mutual softening allows for understanding that goes beyond words. You begin to see not just the actions or expressions of another person, but the feelings and intentions beneath them. Reality becomes richer, layered, more human. Healthy relationships, whether friendships, family bonds, or romantic partnerships, are built on this gentle exchange of inner truths. When two people share their fears, hopes, and uncertainties without judgment, their realities begin to intertwine, misunderstandings soften, assumptions fade. The stories you once told yourself about someone else become more flexible, more compassionate. You begin to see not just what they say, but what they mean. Not just what they do, but what they feel. This openness doesn't require grand confessions. It can appear in simple gestures, telling someone you're tired instead of pretending you're fine, admitting when you're unsure instead of forcing confidence, saying you need help instead of silently struggling. These small acts of honesty create small openings in the walls around your perception. Through these openings, connection grows. Vulnerability also allows you to experience joy more fully. When you soften your defenses, even for a moment, simple experiences feel more vivid. Laughter shared between friends, a warm glance from someone you care about, a conversation that flows effortlessly. These moments shine brighter when your heart is open. You feel the world more intimately, not because it becomes gentler, but because your lens becomes clearer, free from the fog of pretense. But vulnerability is not always easy. Many people carry old wounds, moments when openness was met with misunderstanding or hurt. These memories can build walls that feel protective, and in many ways they are. Walls keep you safe, but they also keep you distant, from others, and even from yourself. Over time, the cost of protection becomes isolation. The walls become heavy. Seeing this pattern clearly is one of the first steps towards shifting it. Vulnerability does not require tearing down your walls all at once. It can happen gradually. Like opening a window in a quiet room. You choose when to open it, how far, and with whom. A small act of honesty, offered in a moment of safety, can be enough to remind you that connection does not always lead to harm, that sometimes it leads to healing. Vulnerability also carries ethical weight. When you shape your own reality, when you reframe your experiences and choose your inner narrative, you do not exist in isolation. The way you show up in the world influences the realities of others. Your openness can gently encourage others to be more honest, more compassionate, more reflective. Your willingness to admit uncertainty can help someone else release their need to appear perfect. Your acceptance of your own imperfections can soften someone else's fear of theirs. This responsibility is not heavy, it is tender. It simply recognizes that human beings are always co-creating each other's experiences. Every interaction becomes a moment where two realities meet and influence one another. In this meeting, vulnerability acts like a bridge. It allows each person to step onto the shared ground of understanding. There are quiet moments in life when vulnerability feels almost sacred. Sitting with someone in grief, holding space for their pain without trying to fix it. Sharing a fear that has lingered in your heart for years. Admitting a mistake and feeling the tension dissolve. Expressing gratitude without worrying how it will be received. In these moments, the world feels more real, more intimate. Your perception widens. The edges of your reality become softer and more connected to the realities of others. And perhaps one of the most profound expressions of vulnerability is allowing yourself to be seen by your own awareness. Many people find it easier to be compassionate toward others than toward themselves. But when you sit quietly with your own thoughts and feelings, when you acknowledge your inner world without judgment, you're practicing the deepest form of openness. You're allowing your consciousness to hold all parts of yourself with gentleness. This inner vulnerability becomes the foundation for all other forms of connection. When you accept your own feelings, you become less afraid of the feelings of others. When you soften your inner walls, you become more open to the world. And when your perception becomes more flexible, reality itself becomes more spacious, more forgiving. As we drift into the next part of this journey, we'll begin exploring how this openness prepares the mind for a wider horizon, how vulnerability, awareness, and reframing all contribute to living consciously in a world that is fluid, unpredictable, and full of possibility. As we drift into this new part of our quiet journey, the landscape changes once more. Until now, we have explored how your inner lens shapes reality, how perception, belief, emotion, and connection create the world you experience. We've moved gently across the inner terrain, observing how thoughts, memories, and vulnerability soften the boundaries of self. Now, we step into a different kind of space, one that is broader, quieter, and wrapped in a kind of delicate mystery, the unknown. The unknown is always present, even in the most familiar moments. It lives in the gap between what you expect and what actually unfolds, in the pause between decisions, in the paths not yet walked. And though many people instinctively try to fill this gap with certainty, it can be soothing, liberating even, to learn how to rest within it, to embrace it as part of the rhythm of life rather than something to fear or control. Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean at dawn. The horizon is still dim, the sky a soft gradient of pale blue. You cannot see what lies beneath the surface of the water, or how the waves will shift as the day unfolds. Yet, there is no urgency in this moment. The uncertainty feels natural, woven into the beauty of the scene. You simply breathe, allowing the mystery to exist without demanding answers from it. This is the feeling of embracing the unknown. In many areas of life, however, the unknown feels less gentle. When a decision approaches, when a relationship enters new territory, when circumstances shift unexpectedly, your mind may instinctively reach for clarity. It tries to predict the future, to grasp what might happen, to build stories that offer a sense of control. This instinct is deeply human. It comes from the part of your consciousness that seeks stability, safety, and continuity. But certainty is a fragile companion. Even when you believe you've understood what will happen next, life has a way of surprising you, of opening doors you never expected or revealing complexities you couldn't have predicted. This is not a failure of perception. It is simply the nature of reality. Life is not a straight line. It is a path with soft curves, unseen turns, and gentle shifts in direction. Embracing the unknown does not mean surrendering your agency or letting go of intention. Rather, it means loosening your grip on the idea that life must unfold exactly according to your expectations. It is the practice of allowing space for possibilities you cannot yet imagine, and trusting that you will meet those possibilities with resilience and understanding when they arrive. Consider a time when something unexpected happened, a change of plans, a new opportunity, a moment of insight that arrived out of nowhere. Often, these surprises reveal aspects of life that would never have emerged if everything went strictly according to plan. You may have discovered a new skill, a new relationship, or a new direction that reshaped your path. These moments remind you that not knowing is not a void, it is a space of potential. Ambiguity can also be a source of freedom. When you're no longer constrained by rigid expectations, you become more open to exploration. You allow yourself to be curious, to try, to observe, to learn. You give yourself permission to change your mind, to shift your direction, to grow beyond the limits you once believed were permanent. Uncertainty becomes less of a shadow and more of a gentle breeze guiding you toward unknown horizons. Even in your relationships, the unknown plays a vital role. You never fully know what someone else is thinking or what they may become. This uncertainty is part of the beauty of connection. It allows for discovery, for surprise, for the slow unfolding of understanding. When you embrace this, you stop trying to predict or control the emotions of others and instead begin to meet them with curiosity, patience, and presence. Your inner world also carries its own unknowns, deep questions you have not yet answered, dreams you have not fully articulated, fears whose roots you have not yet uncovered. These internal mysteries are not signs of incompleteness, they are signs of aliveness. A mind without questions is a stagnant mind. A heart without mystery is a quiet one. The unknown within you is a sign that you are still becoming, still unfolding, still open to transformation. In many spiritual and philosophical traditions, embracing the unknown is seen as the doorway to wisdom, not because the unknown holds all the answers, but because it frees you from the illusion of control. When you stop insisting that life must fit into a predictable pattern, you begin to experience it more fully, more vividly. You become present, not in a forced or disciplined way, but in a gentle, receptive way. The dance between certainty and mystery is part of what gives life its texture. Certainty offers comfort, grounding, and direction. Mystery offers depth, possibility, and openness. When you lean too heavily on one, life loses balance. But when you allow both to coexist, when you let yourself be steady enough to move forward and open enough to be surprised, you begin to navigate the world with grace. Imagine walking through a forest path where you can see only a short distance ahead. The trees arch overhead, creating patterns of shifting light. You do not know what lies around the next bend, but you trust the path beneath your feet. You trust your ability to navigate whatever appears. You trust that even the unseen parts of the journey hold meaning. This is the essence of embracing the unknown, a gentle trust not in outcomes, but in your own capacity to meet them. And perhaps the most comforting part of all is this: the unknown is not a flaw in the world, it is the space where life breathes. It allows new ideas to enter, new relationships to grow, new possibilities to unfold. Without it, everything would be predetermined, static, unchanging. The unknown gives you room to move, to wonder, to imagine. It is the soft frontier on which your consciousness explores. As we continue, we'll gently wander into the realm of intentional living, how the stories you choose, the beliefs you nurture, and the practices you develop can shape a reality that aligns with your deepest values, even as the world continues to shift around you. As we continue drifting through this reflective journey, the world around you may feel a little quieter, a little more spacious than before. You have seen how perception is shaped from within, how awareness softens the grip of habit, how reframing changes the inner landscape, and how vulnerability opens gentle doorways to connection. Now, we arrive at a place where these insights begin to weave together, a place where you can consciously shape the reality you live in, not by controlling the world, but by tending the inner lens through which the world is experienced. Designing a reality aligned with you is not about forcing life to match an ideal picture. It is a soft, ongoing practice of tuning your inner compass, choosing beliefs that support growth, fostering habits that clear your mind, and creating daily moments that guide your perception toward clarity and compassion. It is the art of living intentionally, even when the world remains unpredictable, fluid, and full of unknowns. Imagine waking up in the morning before the rhythms of the day begin. The world is still quiet. You haven't yet opened your phone or stepped into conversation. This moment, a single breath, a brief pause, is like an unpainted canvas. The way you enter it shapes the tone of everything that follows. If you begin with a gentle intention, something as simple as, "I want to meet today with steadiness," or "I will move through this day with curiosity," your conscious lens shifts. It becomes more open, more grounded, more attuned to the experiences that align with your chosen direction. This kind of intentional beginning doesn't have to feel dramatic. It can be a single sentence whispered inside your mind, or even a soft sensation you choose to hold. Calmness in the chest, steadiness in the breath, a quiet desire to be patient with yourself. Over time, these small morning gestures become anchors, subtle tuning points for the inner compass that guide your movement through the day. Beliefs also play a profound role in shaping the reality you inhabit. Not beliefs in a grand philosophical sense, but the quiet ones that hum beneath your thoughts. I am capable. I am learning. I can rest. I am allowed to change. These beliefs do not alter the external world, but they soften the internal one, creating space for growth. When you choose beliefs that support your well-being, you begin to interpret experiences in ways that nourish, rather than drain you. Consider how differently you might respond to a challenge if you hold the belief, "Challenges help me grow," instead of "Challenges mean I am failing." The situation itself remains the same, but the inner lens transforms the emotional landscape. A difficulty that once felt like a dead end becomes a stepping stone. A misstep becomes part of learning rather than evidence of inadequacy. Your reality becomes more spacious, more forgiving. Daily practices can reinforce this alignment. Mindfulness, journaling, or even a few moments of deep breathing create small pockets of awareness throughout the day. These practices gently interrupt the automatic patterns of thought, offering you a chance to choose your response rather than being swept away by it. Even brief practices, 5 silent breaths before a conversation, a moment of reflection before sending a message, or a pause before reacting to irritation, act like small recalibrations for the inner compass. Another powerful practice is gratitude, not as a forced optimism, but as a simple acknowledgement of the moments that bring warmth, stability, or meaning. When you consciously notice these small lights, a kind gesture, a pleasant texture, a quiet moment of rest, you train your mind to see what nourishes you. This doesn't erase difficulty. It simply ensures that difficulty doesn't overshadow everything else. Gratitude in this gentle form acts like a soft brushstroke that brightens the overall tone of your day. Conscious living also involves the environment you choose to surround yourself with, the people you speak to, the spaces you inhabit, the digital worlds you step into, all shape your perception. A messy room can create inner agitation. A quiet corner with a candle can invite calm. Conversations that uplift you shift the emotional climate of your mind. Conversations steeped in negativity can cloud it. You do not need to control your environment entirely, but you can choose which elements support the reality you wish to cultivate. You may also find that designing a reality aligned with you involves releasing certain habits or beliefs that once served you but no longer do. Perhaps a belief that kept you safe in the past now limits your potential. Perhaps a habit that once offered comfort now weighs you down. Releasing is not an act of abandonment. It is an act of clearing space for new growth. It is like pruning a plant so that sunlight can reach the deeper leaves. At the same time, you can cultivate new habits that reinforce the lens you want to see through. If you want more calm, you might practice pausing before reacting. If you want more clarity, you might dedicate a few minutes each evening to writing. If you want more connection, you might soften your tone during difficult conversations. These are not rigid tasks, they are invitations. Small, consistent gestures that gradually shift the way you experience yourself and the world. There's also a softer, more imaginative side to conscious reality design, the practice sometimes described as reality hacking. Rather than a mechanical process, you can imagine it as tuning the strings of an instrument. You listen closely to your inner resonance and adjust what feels off. You add gentle habits that bring harmony. You let go of thoughts that create dissonance. You shape your inner landscape with intention, crafting a reality that reflects your values and desires. This inner tuning becomes even more meaningful when done alongside others. Conscious communities, groups of people who share intention, curiosity, and compassion, create spaces where new forms of shared reality can emerge. These communities do not have to be formal. They can form among friends, co-workers, or even within small corners of the digital world where people gather to reflect, learn, and grow together. When many minds move in the same direction, they create an emotional climate that uplifts everyone within it. The future of human consciousness, especially in a world enriched by artificial intelligence, may involve more of these shared intentional spaces. AI can remind you to pause, help you reflect, guide your learning, or create environments that support your emotional well-being. But even as technology evolves, the central truth remains. Reality is shaped first by the lens within you. AI may offer tools, but you hold the compass. Designing a reality aligned with you is not a final destination. It is an ongoing, gentle practice. It happens in small choices, quiet moments, and subtle shifts in perception. It is a form of self-kindness that ripples outward. When your inner world becomes more grounded, spacious, and compassionate, the outer world begins to mirror these qualities, not because it changes, but because your way of meeting it has. As we move toward the final part of this journey, we'll explore the expanding edge of human awareness, how new layers of perception, from virtual realities to evolving technologies, may shape the horizons of what we call real, and how you can navigate these shifts with steadiness, curiosity, and peace. As we approach the final stretch of this quiet journey, the world around us seems to widen once more. The inner lens you've been exploring, this gentle instrument of perception shaped by memory, emotion, community, intention, now meets a horizon where reality itself is changing. Human awareness has always evolved, sometimes slowly, sometimes in sudden leaps. And today, you stand at the threshold of a new era in which perception is no longer limited to the signals your senses gather from the physical world. New tools, new spaces, and new forms of connection are beginning to soften the boundaries of what real means. To sense this unfolding, imagine standing at dusk in a field. The landscape around you is familiar, the grass, the gentle wind, the darkening sky. But now imagine lifting a simple device to your eyes, and suddenly layers of information appear around the same field. Constellations traced out above you, the shapes of roots beneath your feet, distant mountains outlined with quiet precision. Nothing in the environment has changed, only your awareness has expanded. This is the shape of the world humanity is slowly entering, a world where reality is layered, fluid, and enriched by new forms of perception. Virtual and augmented realities are often spoken about in technical terms, but you can think of them more softly as new rooms inside the house of your awareness. They are spaces where imagination gains form, where stories can be stepped into, where memories can be revisited with new texture. When you enter a virtual environment, your mind doesn't treat it as fake. It treats it as experience. Your emotions respond, your attention shifts, your sense of presence expands. These spaces are not replacements for the physical world. They're additions, new threads woven into the tapestry of perception. Imagine revisiting a childhood street recreated in delicate digital detail, or exploring a distant planet your feet may never touch, or walking through a painting from the inside, colours floating softly around you. These experiences reshape the boundary between what is imagined and what is felt. They invite you to wonder how much of reality is determined not by physicality, but by the quality of presence your consciousness brings to the moment. Artificial intelligence deepens this evolution in another way. Not through force or control, but through companionship. AI can help you notice patterns in your thoughts, reflect on your emotions, or remember moments you might otherwise overlook. It can offer perspectives you hadn't considered, or ask questions that encourage deeper reflection. You can think of AI not as a machine, but as a quiet guide, one that helps illuminate the edges of your awareness where new insights wait to be seen. As technology becomes more woven into everyday life, a new kind of perception emerges. Hybrid awareness, part physical, part digital, part emotional, part imaginative. Some people worry that these new layers might disconnect us from the real world, but the truth is softer. Every era brings new tools for seeing. Telescopes revealing distant galaxies, microscopes unveiling tiny worlds, cameras capturing light in ways the eye never could. Virtual spaces and AI are simply the latest additions to this lineage of expanded sight. Yet with this expansion comes gentle responsibility. When perception becomes layered, the lines between reality, memory, and imagination can blur more easily. Ethical awareness becomes essential, not in a harsh or restrictive way, but in a thoughtful, compassionate one. How do we respect each other's experiences in a world where realities may differ more than ever? How do we maintain clarity when images can be crafted as easily as captured? How do we keep our inner compass steady as new horizons unfold? These questions do not demand immediate answers. They invite presence. They invite intention. They invite the same qualities you've been cultivating throughout this journey: awareness, softness, curiosity, and compassion. As perception expands, so must understanding. As technologies gain new abilities, so must your capacity for reflection. As reality becomes more fluid, your inner grounding becomes more important. Humanity has always lived at the edge of its own awareness. The tools may be new, but the frontier is ancient. The quiet space where known meets unknown, where certainty meets possibility, where reality meets imagination. You have stood at this edge many times in your life. When you first learned to read, when you travelled somewhere unfamiliar, when you fell in love, when you discovered a new passion. Each of these moments expanded your reality. Technology simply offers new paths to that expansion. And just as your inner lens influences how you perceive the world, it will also influence how you navigate these new layers of experience. Someone who meets virtual worlds with curiosity may discover new forms of creativity. Someone who meets AI with openness may find new ways of understanding themselves. Someone who meets uncertainty with steadiness may move through these changes with peace. The tools shape you, but you shape them too, in the way you use them, in the meanings you attach to them, in the stories you allow them to help you create. In this sense, the expanding edge of human awareness is not a distant horizon. It is something you carry within you. It is the willingness to ask gentle questions, to explore new spaces without losing yourself, to embrace new perspectives without abandoning old wisdom. It is the ability to remain grounded even as the world around you becomes more layered and complex. And now, as this journey comes quietly to rest, take a slow breath. Feel the ground beneath you, the soft weight of your body, the presence of your own awareness, steady, spacious, alive. Reality may be fluid, perception may evolve, horizons may expand, but your inner world, the place where all experience begins, remains a home you can return to at any moment. In this home, you can rest, you can breathe, you can let the world soften, you can allow your consciousness to drift gently, knowing that whatever reality brings, within or beyond, you have the clarity, the compassion, and the awareness to move through it with grace,